Hi, everybody. Welcome to Resistance. Um, I want to tell you that this class means a great deal to me. It is something that emerged out of the book that I'm writing now and the times we live in. So the first thing I want to tell all of you, thank you for being part of this class, is it's a privilege to be alive now. And that is a big, huge cosmic truth that I want you to hang on to. It is a privilege to participate in this chaotic, epic era of transformation. And that's exactly what it is. It is a chaotic, epic era. What makes this time so extraordinary? And what is being asked of us and by whom? Is there such a thing as a divine force choreographing everything that humanity is experiencing as as a way of ushering us into a very different era of understanding the nature of life, of why we're here, and most significantly, of understanding the nature of our own power. So, why did I call this class Resistance? I want to start with that because we have an archetypal mechanism in us, like a soul mechanism, that is designed to resist. From the time we're able to act out anyway as children, we resist food we don't want to eat. We resist uh, being told what to do. We resist being sent to our room. We resist. Resistance is a absolute inherent mechanism in us. And just as a sideline, I wrote, once upon a time, the population of Europe believed that the world was flat and that they would fall off the end of the earth and there were sea monsters out there and everything like that. And they resisted when the world was discovered to be round, people resisted that. They thought that can't be true. But it was true. It was always the truth. Here's the point. It was always the truth. But humanity had to kind of grow into that truth. And so people resisted. And we do that all the time. Now, why is resistance such an ingrained part of us? It's not a behavioral defect, not by any means, although it could be that with kids, I imagine. But here's how I want you to understand this. We were born with soul knowledge, an unconscious awareness of the power of our soul, and that the power of our soul is actually the power of our life. The power of our soul is the power of our life. We're born with the unconscious realization that it is this power that animates our world around us, that it is the power of our connection to something that animates that something in our lives. Our resistance mechanism is a soul instinct meant to almost caution us around our tendency to attach to something, to give our power away. Think just, I mean, even this morning as I was listening to the news, through all these commercials about stuff you take so your brain doesn't fall out of your head and this and that. And you really have to just turn off the sound to resist allowing the influence of outside verbiage to come into your head. You resist it. You think that can't be true. That can't be true. You have to resist it. And so our instinct to resist is a soul mechanism that is designed to protect us from releasing the power of our soul to illusions like, I have to have this, I must do this, whatever it is, whatever illusion we come up with. I'm a history buff, and I remember reading about Catherine the Great and how she would dress herself up in all these jewels. And she said to someone, "Oh, I don't do this just because I like jewels." She said, "I have to create the illusion that something about me is divine, is more spectacular. Otherwise, all those people will realize that I'm just an ordinary person." So she had to capture part of the mechanism of their psyche and maintain that. This is where I'm going, obviously, with connecting you to the higher mystical truth that we are all agents of co-creation. And like the flat earth, we grew up in a world where we were not taught about the power of co-creation. It was never introduced to us. It was never part of our thinking. And so we grew up with this idea that the power is on the outside coming toward us, that stuff has power, that money has power, that status, that all of these things have power. But it's us who give those things status and power. It's us who give our power to the belief. Now, I I really, truly, totally believe that we are living in the most profound era of transformation that has ever ex- happened to so far as we know, to the human community and to the earth community. Everything, there isn't any nation, there isn't any person, there isn't anything anywhere that is untouched by the dynamic that is happening. There isn't anything. And from my perspective, you have to understand the organism, the reason for all of this from as high a perspective as you can get in order to decide how to maneuver it, and even in the tiniest choices that you make in your life. Now, I've come to this conclusion because of my work as, believe it or not, as a medical intuitive and where that led me. So I'm going to just include that thread in this for a moment. Because it took me like 40 years to kind of figure out how it is that I now engage with the universe. So when I started out as a medical intuitive, I just did readings with Norm, my dear late Norm Shealy, and I could identify an illness in you. And that was spectacular enough for Norm and me actually in the beginning. But eventually, it seemed to me that something that people wanted to know why. Why did I get this? And here's where we get to you. And that's that what people were looking for follows the paradigm that there is one for every one thing that happens, there's one cause. So there must be one trauma or one event that is the root cause of why now 20, 30, 40 years later I have this illness. And that was such a popular belief. That was again an illusion. But if you are invested in that, that's how you'll shape your world. That's how you'll shape your world. And for the longest time, I followed that map. I followed it because I thought, well, it must be true. There must be some truth here. And eventually, it didn't make any sense to me. And as I unraveled us more and more deeply, I realized that there was a vast dynamic of thoughts, feelings, and emotions that were active agents within us that were not dealt with when a person became ill. Another way to say this is just as we've entered the microcosmos, the microdynamics of the world of energy, the power of energy within our lives, the power of we live in an energetic unit. We are now conscious of the content of energy. We use it in our satellites, we use it constantly. We've entered that same era in ourselves, our micro dynamic era. And with that in mind, what I realized as I did more and more readings, and certainly as I made my passage into the mystical era, I realized that the real stresses that break a person down, that eventually manifest as depression, anxiety, the stresses that break down the digestive system, the stresses that increase pressure in the heart. These actually weren't stresses generated by people at work. They were caused by a fundamental response that we have to these stresses that dealt with our power, that dealt with what I would say truth. Now, I'm going to spend a lot of time on this as this course goes on, but I will tell you that I've never met anybody who has said to me, I'm ill because I don't tell the truth. I'm ill because I lie all the time. And it's my only way of getting anything. And yet today, in the book that I'm writing now, what I list as a major cause of psychic madness, of, of paranoia, of depression, is the fear of truth and the power that truth has to change your life, to change your life. Now, I'm going to hit a pause button and go over here. Say, what is happening in our world now is that I believe that a very different cosmic understanding of who we are, how we operate, the power we have, and that we are agents of co-creation is being revealed to us. Is being revealed to us. And that kind of revelation doesn't just drop in like on a billboard. It incarnates into us. It incarnates. And it is incarnating, first of all, in so many of us, in all humanity, actually, by how we understand our health. We're like a micro earth. And how we understand what makes us healthy and what doesn't. And that and how we understand that we are an integrated system of life. We have emotions, we have intelligence, we have a biophysical anatomy system, that all of it needs to work harmoniously together. And when it doesn't, there's dysfunction. That micro earth, that template of holism, is now an active agent of co creation. And the way in which we apply that truth is part of the dynamic that's changing the world around us. And this is like a great big huge mystical truth, but it's the truth. We have been told the world's not flat, it's round. You are not independent, you're part of a whole. That new truth has so much power that it's going to, just like in the 1500s, change all the maps that the cartographers were putting together to navigate the world as they knew it. And we are now in the process of changing our maps. We are changing how we navigate our understanding of our health, our understanding of our power of choice, our understanding of everything, and our understanding of the power of truth, which is, well, we'll get to that in a minute, but you can, I want to go back to resistance, and that while the word is often associated with politics and political resistance, that's not how I am meaning to use it or what I want to teach you. Rather, I want to present to you a kind of cosmic size view of what's happening in the invisible realm. So you could apply it to your life and apply it to your own understanding of your power to resist. You could start with the nonsense from commercials, but actually it's to discern and resist illusions that are being generated, fake news, illusions, all kinds of things that are being generated constantly, that are holding our world in place or being scaffolded by people trying to change the world as we know it. And that their object is to capture as much of our energetic, psychic soul support in their illusions that would then absolutely create the world they want, or you can resist that and invest the power of your soul in something profoundly powerful that actually is based in truth, in truth. And I am I organized the outline, how I want to teach this based on what I've learned about what we need to be healthy, what we need to thrive. Because if you understand what you need personally, you get that that's what everybody needs, that that's how the world will thrive. This, I oftentimes introduce this symbol of a multi-layer building because it's so effective and it works. And that you are like the building. You are the building. Once you're born, your structure is complete. I was born in Chicago. I can't change that. I was born in 1952. I can't change that. There are things, and that's the structure. Once you incarnate, that's the structure. Your only movement from that point on, your only movement at all is within the building, within yourself, the floor through which you will engage this dynamic called your life, the gift of your life. And every floor in you, every floor offers you a higher truth, a higher perspective, a, a, a vast landscape of possibilities as you move up in yourself, because that's the goal, to move up. Now, to give you an example, because it's important, our first floor in everybody's building is the floor of our physical life and the floor of um, the greatest amount of illusions. So, in our first floor, and I apply this to our health, what we want is simple solutions to problems, no matter how complicated they are. Just tell me what to do. Just fix it. Just fix it. And never on the first floor do you have a history section where you look at how did this happen? I mean, wait a minute, stop. How did this happen? I want all the details. That's not what the first floor in you is about. Your first floor is reactionary. Your first floor is you look outside. If there's trouble in the street, it must be their fault. It's got to be their fault. It's got to be who I'm looking at without any consideration. The package is what you judge. The immediate is what you respond to. Now, every time you respond to something, every time you get emotional about something, you're actually, I speak to you now as a medical intuitive, you are actually draining your power and you're giving it over to that illusion, what in Taoism would call a spectacle. You're giving it to a spectacle and you're giving it authority over you. And you it wouldn't even occur to you. It wouldn't even occur to you that by responding to something, you are actually enhancing it, fueling it, and therefore giving it momentum. And if it has momentum in you, then your personal choices will reflect that. So you become an agent of creation for that illusion. I'm going to say that again. You become an agent of creation, co creation, using that illusion, using that illusion. You know, I'm obviously devoted to the teachings of Buddha, to Jesus, to high mystical forces. Everyone, all of them, the greats, will always say, don't let an illusion in. It's all nothing. Don't give your precious power to that. Don't give that away because it's the most precious thing you have is that power in you because it is the life force. It is the life force. And if you study politics, history, wars, you know that what has to be taken over are newspapers, media, anything, so that they could control the thought forms of people and thereby and they always do that not with inspiration but with fear. This is going to happen, that's going to happen. This is going to happen, that's going to happen. Now, mind you, I have to figure out a way to say this because it's so clear in me, but I need it to come out that way. This is not about, it doesn't matter what political party's in office. It doesn't matter. The universe could have used the Democrats, the Republicans, and could, what is at stake now is that we realize all of that, no matter what power is causing power chaos, it's because some part of me, some part of me is enforcing that point of view. And that enforcement becomes part of my co-creative force. Some part of me. So if they tell me vaccines are bad, if they tell me immigrants are here, if they tell me that, if I believe the propaganda, then that is like donating to a campaign. It's like financing their creative campaign. And it doesn't matter who they are, because someone they're like setups for us. Another way for me to put this to you so you get it is that responding to what's happening in the outside world as if that's real is like riding on a caboose in a train of creation. By the time the caboose arrives on the scene, the engine, the creative team, has long passed that location, and all you see is the results of what everybody else has been creating. And you see the results, but it's very easy to think this is reality and not realize that this was created by everything else going on the train. And that's where I'm trying to get you is every place else on the train is the most important place. And I deeply believe that what's happening behind the scenes and our sacred with our sacred companions is that we've reached the era, the time, the we've reached that place where we need to recognize that we are agents of co-creation, that everything we do, everything we think, how we see the world is the most powerful tool we have, and that it's up to each of us to invest the power of that tool in as powerful and as positive a vision as we possibly can. And I think that is what is behind the scenes, the mechanism that is one of the things I wrote about for this first class. As I said, what changes are inevitable? What's going to happen here? Well, let's follow that for a second. And I want to take it down to you as a person. If you, and I'm sure all of you, have at one point said or realized, you know what, my heart's not in this. My heart's not in this. And the moment you declare that your heart is not in something is the moment you have disengaged your power, your creative power, from whatever you're talking about. It could be a relationship, could be a job, could be a task, whatever. The moment you realize my heart's not in this is the moment you realize your soul is resisting that dynamic and nothing will work. I know when I would do archetypal readings on people, it I'm telling you, you are so extraordinary. If you oh God, I wish I could just how many times I have been with people who've said, "But I want to be an actor. I want to be this. I want to be that." But they didn't have the archetypal pattern. They didn't have it, and therefore, what I learned in my almost 20 years of doing archetypal readings was that we are assigned certain patterns before birth. That's just the way it is. We're assigned those, and those patterns govern the laws of the unit. They're like, you know what they're like? They're like magnets that through which the laws of the universe animate within us. Cause and effect, action and reaction, the law of sensation, the law of constant creation, the law of constant motion. That's all the laws, all the laws. They're animated through those archetypal patterns. And we cannot self-animate an archetypal pattern. We just can't do it. We can't suddenly decide, I think that I want to be an athlete. I think I want to be an athlete. I will plug my, you can't do, it's not part of your contract. It's not there. You can't animate what you weren't assigned. You can't do that. But in recognizing the fascinating mystical truth that I was assigned certain archetypal path. How do I now make choices that enhance what I am under contract to do or to become? How do I work in harmony with this universe? This time we are living in is a time of profound revelation that will alter the world as we know it. And it will. And it will. And it will. Because when I say what changes are inevitable, well, the more we realize about ourselves And the more you, in the tiniest part of your life, in the privacy of your kitchen, decide, you know what, I don't want to use MSG anymore. I need to just clean up my diet. I need to kind of go more organic or whatever. You really don't get that that decision goes into the cosmos. And when I talk about our transformation, I'm talking about us becoming cosmically aware where we do get this and we start living according to it. And that moment has come. That moment has come. You don't get that that tiniest decision that you think no one will pay attention to or ever know has actual huge cosmic reverberations. We are incapable of doing mystical mathematics. We are incapable. We will never ever understand or be able to get that. And yet it is. And that is the source of all the chaos. That what the source of all the chaos is that there is a huge, huge bank of cosmic truth working its way into the dynamic of how we understand life on this planet. All of it aimed at empowering us as individuals. All of it. And because this we are talking about cosmic energetic dynamics of consciousness. The world that was constructed before from the belief that energy was just something in a light bulb and that because I live in this country, I'm separate from everybody else in the world. These illusions that we all grew up with, those illusions are evaporating. And they will take with them the structures that we created based on those illusions. Based on those illusions. And if you know that, if you get that, if you really get that, then you are it positions you to not hold an individual no, not accountable, but responsible. Accountable is another thing. It isn't one, we're all playing a role. I'm going to take you back to the building metaphor. In the first floor of all of us, we are reactionary and we read the newspaper and we believe what we see and we believe what we hear. And we take it at that. The world's flat. But you know what? As you ascend in yourself and decide maybe like some of you, when I was growing up, I was told only Catholics went to heaven and that we could only hang with Catholics. And eventually that perception, that teaching was suffocating. So I had to break out of it and go to another level. And at that level, I thought, well, I don't know. What about Protestants? What about this? And then finally, I was making it up to a level of Eastern religions and Buddhism and Taoism, and my world was exploding. I was up here, but every time you liberate yourself from an illusion, every single time, you change your physical world. There'll be a physical counterpart in your world because your world was held together by that illusion. There's a physical something. And that makes it very frightening for us. We resist a larger perspective coming in because it will push out the lesser one and everything that goes with the lesser one. Every single thing. We will push it out because it's so intimidating to have a higher truth come in and let it change our world. So, for example, I now often teach that we've reached the end of the anthropomorphic age of God. which is also part of what's going on in the chaos in the field. We've reached the end. There's no like date. It's an evolutionary mystical fact. The idea of an off planet God that looks like us, behaves like us, is no longer adequate. And there's a higher cosmic truth that's trying to make its way into the world. But like every illusion, the illusions that no, 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 God looks like us, God here, God's on our side, God helps us win wars. There's a lot at stake for the human community to release its religious mythologies and superstitions that say, no, like I actually watch, sports sometimes, and I see athletes like they think God's on their side. They think God's on their team. They're wearing crosses. They're blessing themselves. They're doing all this, and I think, you, what the hell are you doing? You, but that's that first floor belief. That's that first floor kind of attitude that, God's on our team, God's on this. And maybe they're praying, help me do my best, different kind of prayer. But you get what I'm saying is there's a superstition to this God. We are reaching a place, reimagining. I want you to reimagine that we're leaving behind these human made forms of God in order for something galactic and cosmic and more authentic to make its way into us. Back to the building. In the building, as you go up in yourself, you think, as I would introduce this idea, that all right, let's go from the first floor where you're into your religion to let's go to all of us to a fourth floor of ourselves where you're willing to say, my religion has a bunch of stories and yours has a bunch of stories. And I cannot tell you how many times Christians will say, I'm sorry, but I am not releasing Christmas. That's not going to happen. I have to believe that this was the day Jesus was born. The animation of these beliefs hold our world together. If they become deanimated, then the structures they hold together have to evaporate. They just have to evaporate. If enough people start believing, for example, in Hitler, that crazy man had the plan to help them come out of the horrible um, financial upheaval left by World War One. But they believed it, and they turned over the power of their soul and the power of their mind. And therefore, they became possessed by that. That's possession. It is in this idea of resistance is your ingrained natural capacity for you to be able to recognize a thought form that's coming in, that's being presented to you, and to resist any part of that thought taking hold of you. Here, I mean, I listen to people talk all the time. Well, I'm too old for that. There you go. That's an illusion they've given their power to. I'm too old. At some point, age becomes just determines your uselessness. I'm too old for that. Another, if I don't have this amount of money, I'll never be able to survive. If I don't have, there are so many thought forms on the first floor that we give our soul to. That when I honestly, when I think of people like doing physical cleansings for their body, for their health, I think that's useless. What you need to cleanse are all those thought forms that you believe are true, that have absolutely no truth to them. And yet you give them constant, you give them your the power of your soul to go about creating chaos in your life. One of my directives to you in this first class is to actually sit back and say, what do I believe? Am I presently believing that is that only results in chaos? That only results in chaos. Doesn't calm me down, doesn't do anything else. It just results in chaos. What would that thought form be? And what would it take for you to decide, you know what? I'm not going to animate that anymore. I'm not giving that any power anymore. It doesn't, by the way, it doesn't mean ignore it. It means, you know what? Every time I feel a response, I'm going to detach and take a deep breath and say, oh, no, 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 no. I am not giving into that. I'm not giving into that. That is what it means to like practice resistance. Like what, how did I ever believe some, or if you want to start there, go back and review things you once believed that you don't anymore. And that you found a way to detach from that. And then you realize, that has no authority over me. That's what resistance is. That's what resistance is. And obviously, it's going to become a practice that I will encourage in terms of recognizing how much garbage is in the airwaves. As I said, when I reached a certain place as a medical intuitive and my work became very mystically focused, I realized I was dealing with your soul dynamic, your soul, and that the real source of grief, the real source of there's pain and there's suffering. Pain is what happens when we lose people. When I lost Norm, when I lost Tom, when I lost my mom. I mean, just pain. But suffering is often self inflicted and chosen. And you don't realize it. But you don't realize you believe things that have no truth to them. Now, all the great spiritual traditions teach the truth sets you free. The truth, truth, truth. And how many great spiritual masters lead their students on an inward journey of self-knowledge to shed and release all of these thought forms that are inwardly aggressive, but they have no truth. They have no truth to them. Like, here's a truth. And that's that the power of love is greater than the power of hate. You can see the power of hate being destructive, but only love has the power to heal, has the power to transform. And so it's very challenging for us to resist outside dynamics that generate rage in us. It's very hard to do that. And it takes enormous practice, prayer, and discipline to pull back and say, no, I am going to send love instead. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. It's a perspective in your inner building that's so high that it's just because we want immediate results. when we do things. We can't yet, it is very difficult to get us to a place inside where we let our spirit, our soul, do the work for us. Instead of our rage, instead of our emotions, instead of our anger, we turn it over to the soul, which is exactly what I'm hoping to communicate here, is that we have higher resources now. And honestly, if you can hear a weapon, you're using something that's outdated. The soul is the greatest resource. It doesn't make any sense to the logical mind. But I think somehow we have reached a place in our evolution where this has to start making sense to us because this is our survival mechanism. This is how we are going to survive, not through um, giving into the beliefs that somehow we have to have more and they get less. We have to, that destruction and war is a way of solving problems. That nuking our only beloved little planet is somehow a solution because we'll get them before they get us. I just saw this movie, House of Dynamite. 3 different scenarios about the same thing, and that's reaching the point of whether or not to launch a nuclear response to an incoming missile that was, by the way, headed to Chicago, which is my home. And um, all I could think of through it is that are we still so primitive that we fear other people so much that mass destruction of them is what's required to make us feel okay, to make us feel safe? That mass destruction of animals, of land, of food, of people, of structures, of history is the way, but as long as we're okay. And I just sat there and watched and I thought, it is so tragic. Now, honestly, from another point of view entirely, I really deeply believe, and this is my personal spiritual belief, that we've reached that place in our creative and destructive power, both creative and destructive, that we now possess a capacity to destroy the life mechanism of this planet. I think, I'm just tossing this out to you, but I think the way the divine works in our lives, it's not these apparitions or, there is no off-planet God coming to our rescue. We have to come to our rescue. It is we who have to evolve to become a species incapable of using the destructive power that we have created. And I deeply believe that we have reached that time where the way the divine works is not to change anything outside of ourselves, but get us to change our attachment to what's outside of ourselves. Get us to empower our soul. Get us to use this power. It's heaven will never, never go outside of ourselves, go outside on the outside and start moving cars and planes and boats and trains. That's not how the divine works. The divine works through us, and then we do the moving. We change the world around us because we've changed the world within us. That and I think truly, truly, truly that there's never been a time more critical for that change to take place. So when I look at all the chaos happening in the world, it's not because of politics and this and that and this and that. Well, that's first floor. But that's the caboose on the train. That's the consequence of whoosh, something far more profound that's happening. And that's that every single part of life has gotten cosmic downloads. And either we, like a cosmic download, the world is round. Now you're going to fight that, or you're going to decide, okay, I'll take all these maps off my wall that are no longer relevant because they do not reflect the truth. And so here are the cosmic downloads that I believe are changing the shape of our world and changing the shape of us and redirecting the future of this of humanity. All is one. Now that truth is the basis of holism, of the body, mind, spirit template. All is one. And here's the thing. When that truth comes in, it's like a homeopathic impulse that just, and the laws of the universe are calibrated to that mystical truth, are calibrated to it. They work in accordance to this because that's the nature of the divine. It's the, God is built into the system, built into the laws, built into how the laws work, built into the dynamic of creation. And so this dynamic of creation that says all is one is like pulsating. And it filters into every single part of life. It filters into what we create, the internet, all is one. We create the environmental movement. We start looking at the planet as a planet community of humans. We engage with the oneness created by our technology. All is one. And that becomes a active biological agent in us, an active thinking principle, an active co-creation. And so, for example, if you went to the doctor and the doctor said, you got a bum heart, I got some medicine, but it's going to blow out your kidneys. What do you care? You got two of them and you can live on one. Well, I'll bet you most of you would say, what? You got anything else? I need you to consider my whole being because that's in you now. That's in you. That belief in the whole is an operating principle in you now. And you you can't get away with, you can't detach from it because it's a higher truth. And maybe it's caused you to kind of reshape how you think, how you eat, how you exercise, how you treat, but it is an active agent of truth. And so the you follow it. And you know that if you act in opposition to that truth, that your body will respond. Your body will absolutely respond. Because your soul is like a truth-seeking missile. And it absolutely lets you know that something's wrong here. And if a doctor said, no, 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 really trust me. I mean, we'll lose one kidney with the other one, but this, some part of you would say, don't you dare compromise. Stick with the truth. This doesn't feel right. Get out of here. And go find someone who works within the all is one template. Now, as we'll discuss going on in the other classes, once a mystical truth is an active creative agent in you, you have to apply that truth. You have to start living it. And that's where we start changing the world around us. But this truth that all is one and all life breathes together is such a high, profound, mystical truth, and it's reshaping the world. So looking through that lens for 1 minute, what happens when people resist a high mystical truth? What happens? Well, their actions are completely revelatory when it comes to that. So you look at people, for example, who decide, I'm not going in the oneness direction. Let's go backwards. Let's turn the clock back. Let's create chaos because we don't want to go forward, so let's go backward. Let's start doing legislation. Let's go back to, I know, let's go take power away from people. Let's disempower, disempower. That's what we'll do. We'll disempower the schools. We'll disempower their capacity to think. We'll disempower everything because we're going to go backwards. That's part of what's causing the chaos. It's resistance to an incoming truth. And think about something in your own life, where I think of the chaos that happened in my own life when we tried to get my brother, my late brother, to come to terms with the truth that he was an addict, that he was an alcoholic. It was an incoming truth. And he he couldn't go there. He just couldn't go there. He could not accept that. He was still under the illusion that he controlled the substance. The substance didn't control him. Every one of us has examples in our lives when an incoming truth is coming at us. It's very, very difficult to just say, oh, hey, come on in. I've been expecting you. We always resist. We always do, because we know as soon as that truth comes in, I've got to change. I can't undo it. And I'm going to go back to what's happening on the planet. And the chaos that's being generated is because a truth has downloaded this impulse that says, let's work together with humanity. Let's become one people of Earth instead of, no, you're a brown skin, you're a blue skin, you're red, you're green. The way we've divided to conquer, that's not going to work anymore. That's not going to work anymore because the impulse of holism is the active agent. And what doesn't support the whole, it will fight for its life, but it will lose. It will lose because it's not. You know, I have been deeply, deeply, deeply impacted by Teresa of Avila. Her teachings, and she was a 16th century mystic in Spain, and her teachings. And one of her teachings, you reach a point where everything she said had mystical value. She said, you can dig your own well for water, and you'll find the water, and you'll drink it, and it will sustain you. But eventually, it'll run dry, and you have to go do it all over again, and do it all over again, and do it all over again, until you get to a place where you release resistance to something greater than yourself, to the idea that the mystical, preposterous mystical idea, and it is preposterous, that there is a divine source that actually knows about your life and actually cares about the details of your life, down to every thought you have and every sensation you feel. because it's part of the tapestry. It's part of the you're part of the being of this being. It's a preposterous mystical idea. Preposterous. And yet, Teresa said, you know what? If even part of that idea, that cosmic truth, that holy truth gets into your soul, just a part of it, that's enough for a lifetime. And it's like being given a well of something that'll never run dry. You never have to dig again. You're just supplied. You're supplied with whatever grace you need. You're supplied with you have to get how heaven works. It's not here to change your life. It's here to direct you to change your life. And I realized with Teresa, that one teaching ignited a transformation in me personally. When I see people hanging on and acting from illusions, like, if we can only go back to the good old days, good, make it only go back to the good old days. I realize I know exactly why they're doing that. That's resistance to any kind of higher expression of love and humanity. It's the belief that I won't survive. I won't survive unless I have more than that person. It is primitive mathematics. We'll get into this, but the mystical truth on the first floor of life, we have all these challenges and predicaments facing humanity that don't look like they have solutions. We are such primates. We think that we can make people sign a piece of paper, and that will stop a war, and that will stop bombing, and you just sign right here. Yeah, right. No, 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 no. You cannot make a glacier sign a document. You stop melting. You stop it. You can't make the ozone fall into health. You just sign. Who's representing the ozone? We have entered an era of challenges that can only be met by our transformation, by our not being afraid that other people might have more, might have more. The idea that all is one is this profound mystical truth that says, you know what? A rising tide lifts all ships. You have got to stop resisting thinking that somehow or other, in order for something to work out, you have to have more and they have less. What I realized years and years and years ago was what is revealed to us is based on like what we believe and how we feel and how empowered we feel. And so take a look at um, the Depression in 1929. And I mean, you didn't expect to go back there, but let's just do it for a second. You go back to 29. Do you know it's almost going to be 100 years since the Great Depression? Jeez. Anyway, and if you look at newspaper articles after the Depression, they spoke about specifically how the United States was economically crippled, and crippled was a word they used. And also, it was the result of the Spanish flu and the Dust Bowl, the many, many things that had piled up. But the country was economically crippled. And then came polio in the 30s, the epidemic of polio. And the the United States, ends up electing a president who had polio, although because of the media, because they still respected the office of the president, still they respected and didn't expose him as being incapable. And but then came World War II. And out of World War II, the United States emerged an economic and military giant, the largest the planet had ever seen. And then came the booming years of the 50s. And what happened? We changed our language. We changed our language. We said, oh, we're economically on our feet again. And then Jonas Salk happened to discover the vaccine at that time. Here's my point. My point is that if I had you in a place before you were born, and we're giving you spiritual guidance for your journey into the human experience, what I would say to you is, you know what? You're actually going into an experience of creation, of the dynamics of creation. And so and we will be there to guide you. We angels will always be right behind you to guide you. But it's up to you to make the choices with this profound vessel you have, your soul, that will set into motion cause and effects, action and reaction, dynamics of creation, and you will weave yourself into this tapestry of creation. And then when we call you back home, we're going to ask you, what did you do with your life? How did you use your life? Not to judge, just to teach. Just let's see what you did. Let's see what you did. But when you're down there, you will be, the hardest part is for you to believe that your life has a schedule, that your life is directed. You will fall into the pattern of thinking, more or less, win or lose. And if you fall into that, you have to resist that kind of thinking. If you fall into that, all your decisions have already been made because you have fallen into that. Let me say that to you again so you get it. If you have bought into the illusion that in order for you to win, others have to lose. In order for you, you just have to have more. And that will keep you safe, as so many people believe. That safety is in moreness. I hope you get this. That illusion has already pre-made decisions for you as your life unfolds. You've already, how do I say, created the formula through which you see life, and decisions are run through that formula. Do I get more or less here? Do I get, because I got to win and I won't feel good. My health won't feel good. I won't feel good. Nothing unless I get the winner's share here. This template is so strong in people. Now, I'm going to take you real fast up to the cosmos with me. And imagine an angel saying to you, we, the celestial inspiration crew, can only provide you, earth beings, with solutions that match, excuse me, pardon me, that match your understanding of power. If you're afraid that a vaccine or a method to heal cancer will heal everybody, and then what? We can't give it to you. We can't give it to you. You have to, we can only inspire you within the range of your psychic field. If you decided, you know what? A rising tide lifts all ships. What can I do for others? If you got to that point, the inspiration of how to solve problems would be right there because you are looking to solve with love, not schmaltz love. You're with this benevolence toward life, and your inspiration matches that. What heaven can give you matches that. What heaven can give you matches that. If you, I remember when I wrote Invisible Acts of Power. And as I say, really, my gratitude for all of you is off the charts because if I didn't have the gift of being able to teach and be with you and find out your stories, I would have not, I would learn nothing, everything of value. When I, what inspired me to write Invisible Acts of Power is that I had, there were a lot of homeless people. And what I saw is how often people would like look distracted when they walked past a homeless person. Like they wanted to ignore them. They would deliberately look distracted or something. One day, I'm sitting in a car right here in our park, right here in our park, sitting in a coffee shop, and and I could see out the window, and there were homeless people by the door, and I'm once again watching people look the other way. And suddenly I realized, you see that person, but more than that, you sense them. That's why you're looking the other way. You don't want to feel. You don't want to make eye contact with them. You you are. And that's when I realized, you know what? We are so wired intuitively to perceive and sense the world around us. That was like a mystical download for me because it really revamped how I understood the nature of intuition as a soul sensing mechanism and why we are designed to sense everybody else and that it takes conscious effort to turn that down to anesthetize our intuitive senses and that the result of that, which is worth another class, is intuitive madness. Intuitive madness. It's depression, anxiety, all come because of acts of betrayal, because you've turned off your guiding mechanism. Now, that guiding mechanism will always lead us, if it's on and working well, will always lead you to sense another person. And then, what can I do for them? And sometimes, you may not have a $20 bill, but you have kindness and the gift of kindness and compassion and a prayer, God help them. This one woman, homeless. She wrote, and this is an Invisible Acts, she wrote that she spots a homeless person across the street and forgets for a moment that she herself is homeless. And she falls into prayer for that person. God help that person. And the next thing, within 1 hour, this man walked up to her and said, I'm looking for a secretary and I need some help here at the rectory and da 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 da. And she became um, an employee of the church working with the food kitchen. Now, we're working with the church, and then it also had a food kitchen. It, what heaven does is the moment we begin to include others in how we are, how we think, how we respond, heaven works that big with us. It works that big with us. It works that incredible machine of it. I mean, it's just too so when I say all life breathes together, that is one of the major mystical truths that is getting downloaded into our collective soul. And it will one day dominate and reform this this thing called humanity. None of us will live long enough to see that, at least not in this carnation. But what we are living through is the dismantling of the illusion that we are separate, that what we do has no impact on the rest of humanity, that somehow our power is based on what we have, not what we think, of what we, I always laugh. They call people saints because they managed to get this and they simply lived by mystical rules. And it was so amazing to people. It's like, how did you know that? How could you do that? How could you bilocate? How could you be that? They simply lived by the higher mystical truths. But I left people gobsmacked. Here's another mystical truth, and that's that the earth is an alive being. It's not just a planet, it's actually it's the largest alive being any of us will ever encounter so long as we're on this beloved live being. And that the earth has guardian angels. Isn't that amazing? And that I didn't mean to say that, slipped out, but that the earth is constantly caring for its inhabitants. But that that respect is not exchanged and not mutual. One of the illusions that you must resist is the idea that what you do to the earth doesn't matter. It does matter. It does matter. Whether you're picking up dog crap like I have to do every evening when I walk my dog, or whether you are making sure things are recycling, whatever it is, never ever resist the temptation to tell yourself what you do doesn't matter, because it matters to the whole. And every single time you embrace the reality that you are breathing with everything on the earth, you are actually expanding a field that you won't see till you die. Mystical truths are so powerful, but it's not like they suddenly, change the world around, but they change you and you change the world. So you resist the illusion that you are too old, that there's nothing you can do. In fact, everything you do and everything you are matters. You are one living, breathing agent of co-creation. I I'm looking at what when I start, the mystical truth that I chose as the headline for this class, for the lead. Do you know where my notes went? Wait a minute. This is what happens when I think that I'm organized. Here we go. Is that heavenly forces are involved in every dynamic of creation, even and perhaps most especially when we cycle into chaos. Resist when you see the chaos of saying, this is going to end up here. This will do this will do that. I want you to resist that. I want you to resist and stand back and, in fact, invest your power in the higher truth. I have no idea what's going on here, but I trust that what's getting taken away is going to be replaced by something better, and I will participate in that. I will participate in that. And if in this chaos we see how many people suffer, then we respond to that and say, don't ever say to yourself, somebody should do something. If you see it, it's you. Yesterday, I have had a long running devotion to doing something for homeless people. And last year I did, it doesn't matter, but I remembered that homeless shelter because I just know, I just know because of all the things that are going on that they'll be running out of food. And I'm standing in my kitchen. This happened yesterday. I'm standing in my kitchen and I thought, I've got to reach out to the homeless and see what I can do for them. And all of a sudden the phone rings. And just like that, just like that. And it was the woman who's head of that home. She says, Carolyn, we're doing getting a charity gathering together next week. Can you be there? Absolutely. Just like that. Just like that. And you know what? There was a time when I would be, kind of surprised or whatever. Oh, just like, not anymore. You know what I do now? Now, my response, and this is what I'm saying to you, resist thinking you're alone. Resist thinking that you have any privacy at all, because you don't. Resist. And what I do is I say to my angels, I need this. How about? Because it's like I can't, I've gone as far as I can. Whatever I forgot, let me know. And honestly, resist believing that anything is impossible. Everything is possible with God. Everything. So I want to bring this class to a close because I have other mystical truths that we're going to go into, but it would take me too much time, and we'll start there in the next class. But I want to give you, please, look at something you once resisted that you believed, and now you resist it because it doesn't make any sense. I want you to really pay attention to what it feels like when you have disengaged successfully from a belief, when you have totally disengaged. And I want you to remember what I always say to my students in class is, any of you want my pen? And they just look at me. No, I want something ridiculous as an illustration of what it's like to show you when something has no power over you at all. That's what it means to resist. Now I'm going to wrap this up by reminding you that truth is the name of the game here. Truth. And that media people, political people, blah, 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 they're in the business of getting your spirit, of recruiting the power of your soul through their fear. So it's in their best interest to manufacture fear all the time. Don't take take this pill or you're going to lose how to think, how to be clear thinking. Take this, do this. Don't trust those people. They're coming over the border. They're dropping out of the sky. They're in your apple tree. All the nonsense. Practice resistance. Practice it. And practice it with a sense of, oh, I get the game here. If you get my soul, if you get my power, then all I have to do is 2, 3, 10 weeks later, 2 weeks later, read something. And if it activates that fear, I will jump to it. I will jump to it. That's your indicate that you are hooked, that you're hooked. And that's exactly when you should say, oh, whoa. This is coming out of me. I need to be able to read this with detachment and just read, like, here we go. It's the propaganda. So you could recognize this is all illusion, propaganda. I will not finance this. What I will support is the higher truth that all is one, that all is one. And let that truth work its way into your heart, into your being, into your thoughts. Okay, I want to wrap this up with a little bit of grace. I obviously deeply believe in the power of prayer and the presence of the divine everywhere and in everything. I believe we are breathing God. So, Lord, pour your grace into us. Pour your grace. This is a time we're living through chaos, and it is not chaos for you. It's not. It's just movement, and all life is movement. So give us the grace to trust in your holy map and in the presence, and to appreciate the presence of each other in our lives. All right, everybody, thank you. Next class is the soul strategy of resistance. Nothing has power unless you animate it. So we are really going to dive deep into that. Thank you, everyone.